Welcome back to my channel for this week's Human Design Transit Report. Today is Monday, January 30th. And the transit that we're in right now today through Wednesday, I talked about in last week's report. So if you want to know what's going to happen between now and Thursday, which is when the new transit comes in, you should go and watch last week's transit report, and I'll tell you all about that. Then on Thursday, February 2nd, the sun is going to move into the gate 13 and the earth is going to move into the gate 7. Okay, let's get started. So let's talk about the sun in the gate 13. So in traditional human design, it's known as the listener. And in quantum human design, it's known as narrative. And it's another one of the 3 storytelling gates in the human design chart. And in the current transit we're in right now, the earth is in the gate 33, which is another one of the storytelling gates, right? So we've got lots of storytelling energy coming up during this time. Now, the distinction here with the 13 is it is on the G center. So it's over here on the left-hand side of the body. It's coming right up off of the G. And its mate is the 33, which is where the Earth is right now. It's interesting. So the gate 13, I will often say to people, if they have this defined in their chart, I'll say, do people like to come and confess their story to you? Because this is kind of an energy where people like to share what's been going on with them. And that's why it was the listener in traditional human design, right? It was like this energy for, I can receive your story. I can hear your story. I can honor your story. I will honor, have confidentiality with your story. But then there's also this sense of that story can be retold, and it can be retold for the betterment of the collective. And it doesn't have to have that person's name attached to it. It doesn't have to be specific in that way. But you can also do this about your own stories, where you're going to take a story of yours and you're going to retell it so that it has a lesson for the collective, because this is collective energy. All of the storytelling gates are in the sensing circuit, and the sensing circuit is collective energy, which means that even though there may be an exchange of stories between 2 individuals, it's possible for that story to become meaningful for the larger collective, depending on how it's told. Right? And so the really awakened and empowered expression of this is when we can kind of get into the essence or the heart of a story and about what it really means. And through telling our own story, or potentially telling the story of someone else in a way that's appropriate, and that you've been given permission to do that, or you don't mention who they are, and don't say anything that's really identifiable about them, right? But you tell it so that it's something that can, awaken other people. It can uplift other people. It can be empowering for other people, right? It could be a cautionary tale. We all know cautionary tales, right? Where it's like, uh-oh, don't do that. But it can also be stories of transformation in a positive sense, of evolution, of how we've gone through a challenge, but then we came out the other side, and what we learned from having to go through that challenge, and what is it that we're now starting to do in our lives as a result of having learned that lesson. I can give you an example from my own experience. You may have heard this before if you've been watching my videos for a while, which is that I left my job at Columbia University when I was, building my career and doing really well, and my book was coming out and all of that. And for a while I was really confused. I was like, why? What? I just knew I needed to leave, and I needed to go find something else to do, and I didn't know what I needed to go find. And I went into what one of my spiritual teachers, Orrin, calls the void, right? Also, Karen Curry Parker calls it the void, which makes sense because it's the time when the old has broken down or is breaking down and the new hasn't come yet, and you're in this kind of liminal space. And so for a while, I was in that, and I didn't know what was going on. And if I told my story at that point, it would have been one kind of a story. But now, when I tell that story, I go, oh, that happened because I got everything that I needed through that experience, and my soul was dying. and I was overdeveloped in my left brain, and my intuition was like beating me over the head, only I didn't know what it was, and basically saying, you got to go do something else, because otherwise you're going to be kind of a dried up intellectual, which unfortunately happens to too many academics. Also, I was not able to express my individual circuitry when I was in the academy. A lot of times people didn't quite know where to place me. They were like, gosh, is she in literature, or is she in history? Is she in American studies? Is she in cultural studies? And it was kind of like, well, I don't think she belongs here. I don't think she belongs there. It was kind of like that, right? I was like, ugh. So I needed to leave so that I could find a way to become more of myself and to become more whole. And I really look at that experience now and go, oh yeah, I totally get why that happened. And now I also hold space for other people who have that experience. Like right now in my Activate Your Superpowers class, virtually everybody who's in that class is in a similar place to where I was, where something that they had been connected to or part of before had broken down, or they had decided to leave it because it was soul sucking. And then now they're in this liminal space where they're learning their human design, and they're learning a lot about themselves so that then they can recreate their lives from a much more authentic and true place, an understanding of who they are, what their gifts are, what their superpowers are, and what they are drawn to do in terms of their contribution to the larger world. So that's an example of me kind of retelling this story of my own life so that it can be a story for the collective. Because I think that, since I left in 1997, I think a lot of people have had this experience and have left. A lot of things happened a lot during COVID, right? All kinds of people like quit their jobs and then were like, what am I going to do now? So it's a way that an individual person's experience can then become inspiration for others, right? It can become like a kind of a guiding light for others at time. And sometimes it's just an affirmation like, yeah, you're in this situation, other people have been in this situation, and you can get through it. And guess what? It's going to be better on the other side. And then the sun in the gate 13 is resting on the earth in the gate 7. So the gate 7 is also collective circuitry. It's in the logic circuit or the pattern circuit, and it's on the other side of the G center. So it's over here on the right-hand side of the body. And it is, in traditional human design, is known as the chief of staff. And in quantum human design is known as collaboration. And it is the energy for, like, when I was first taught this chief of staff business, right, was the person who really is running the show, right? It was the idea that the person who was the 31, who is like the leader, right, was a figurehead. And the 7 was the one who was really running the show, the chief of staff, the one who really knew what was going on, made all the deals and all that kind of thing, right? But in developing quantum human design, Karen has evolved this energy beyond that kind of hierarchical configuration to saying, okay, yeah, because now the 31 in quantum human design is the leader, right? But I call it the New World Leader. And that New World Leader is based in collaboration. So it's not a kind of top-down kind of leadership. It's definitely more of a democratic leadership. It's a more horizontal leadership, if you will. It's one that takes into account everybody's needs, and that helps us to build collaborations that are going to be mutually beneficial for everyone involved. And that is so important that it's actually pillar number 7 of feminine sovereignty, is creating mutually beneficial collaborations. This is a skill set that we desperately need here on planet Earth during this time when things are, changing a lot, right? And when we really need to change a lot, there's a lot that has to be different in order for our planet to continue and to regenerate and to become healthy again. And so we have to learn how to collaborate with people that maybe we wouldn't ordinarily collaborate with. Or maybe we need to break out of our kind of narcissistic individualism that sometimes we can get into, right? Just being out for myself. And I know that sometimes that's fueled by fear, because life is pretty intense. I mean, it's intense for everybody, right? And it can be hard for everybody in different ways. So I get that. Like, we do need to take care of ourselves. We do need to make sure that our own house is in order and that our kids are taken care of and our parents are taken care of, or whatever that is. We do need that. And yet there's a kind of individualism that was built into the American dream that was not about being collaborative with other people. And it's pretty different, actually, than things that had happened earlier, where there was much more collaboration among people who were colonizing the Americas, right? They were collaborating with each other. They weren't necessarily collaborating with the indigenous people, but they were collaborating with each other because they had to. Right? And then when you get this real wealth that happened in the middle of the 20th century, and, or even earlier than that, then you get this individualism, right? Which is that, I'm just going to be the head of my family, and I'm going to have my kids, and I'm going to have my yard, and I'm going to have my house, and my car, and it's all going to be that, and I'm going to, climb up that ladder, right? We can't afford to have that in our world anymore. We really need to wake up from the trance of consumerism that has led us down a very, very slippery rope that we, hopefully aren't going to fly off the cliff of that, right? And so collaboration is absolutely key to us being able to do what we need to do. So that's the foundation, right? And then we can tell stories that come from our own lives or that we hear from other people that are empowering in terms of what those collaborations, how those collaborations can unfold, how they can be mutually beneficial. One of the things I've been doing for the last, over a year now, when I was really researching for some things for my book around mutually beneficial collaborations, I started coming across all of these different resources to understand all of the incredible collaborations that are going on among people who are looking to create their lives in new ways. I'll put some resources for you to find out more down in the description. So I want you to know this is already happening and that you can be involved in it. And it's very, very inspiring. I've gotten very inspired to see people creating eco-villages or intentional communities that are really regenerative, or people who are just getting together in their neighborhoods and are doing new things in their neighborhoods, whether that's picking up garbage, just really cleaning things up, or whether it's creating community gardens, or whether it's creating new places for their kids to gather and play together, or community centers, or like, for example, there's an organization here in a town near mine called Daily Acts, which is all about how do you create a more regenerative culture and a more regenerative environment, and they teach people how to, tear up their lawns and build permaculture gardens, and then also how do you do that together? And they've really spearheaded people coming together to do a lot of things. They've created new policies in their city, and that has affected our county, and it's starting to serve as a model for what could happen going forward. So this is a really great example of how collaborations can work, and how the story, actually the guy who started it, he wrote a book. I'll put it down in the description. That's his story about how he created Daily Acts. Okay, and so he's now telling his story and the story of the development of his organization, so that it is an inspiration and a lesson for all of us. So if you start looking around, I'm sure that if you haven't already thought about it, that there's plenty of this already happening. And this is a really great time during this transit for you to be leaning into that and to be wondering about what collaborations can you participate in, or how can you uplift any collaborations that you're already in? Is there a way that you can write a new story about the collaboration so that it becomes more satisfying, more effective, more innovative, more creative, and so on? right? So that's my invitation to you, is just to be looking into where are you already putting your energy, and then where could you be putting your energy that would be collaborative with other people towards creating a more regenerative culture and a more regenerative world that's more sustainable and respectful and compassionate and is good for all of the world's people and also for the more than human world. I also invite you to join us in the Becoming Sovereign Virtual Retreat Center. This is an online community that I have created for those of us who like to geek out on human design, basically. And so we have conversation about the weekly transit reports. I do workshops on human design. I also offer Kundalini yoga practices, and it's really growing very nicely. And I would love for you to come and join us there, and I'd love to meet you. Okay. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.